Hi, everyone. So my name is Egle. I am a product manager for a company called Nitro. At Nitro, we do document productivity, and we help companies to achieve their digital transformation goals. My previous experience was, I come from user experience background. I worked in Aer Lingus and SAP before, among some other smaller companies. So today my talk is going to be about retrospectives and how do we make teams excellent, and how to achieve this excellence within your team. So what is team excellence? For many of you, it might mean different things. What makes your team excellent, and are your teams excellent? So for some, it means hiring top talent, having a cool leadership where you can go talk to them, you can trust them, having a meaningful product, like, I don't know, curing cancer or something, results-driven, clear goal, prioritizing effectively. But how and why are retrospectives important? If you have all of these things, but if you don't have a continuous feedback loop, then how do you know that your team is most effective as it can be? And what do you know about your team if you don't have these retrospectives? So what are retrospectives? So according to Agile Manifesto, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. So retrospectives are basically meetings that generally occur at the end of a sprint, or you can do them as often as you like. Some brief history. So the word itself, the word retro in Latin means back or backward, and then spessere means to look at. So this word it has like a lot of different meanings. Quite often, it comes from artists, where they would have an exhibition or arts exhibition, and we will look back through their projects throughout their lifetime. So retrospectives in Agile, of course, have a little bit of different meaning. And then some general benefits are customer satisfaction. It makes teams more effective. Teams are self-sufficient. There's continuous improvement. They try to evolve as they go through this continuous feedback loop. So I'm going to talk about how did we launch retrospectives in Nitro, and what was our experiences. We launched it, of course, as part of larger Agile development framework. So what was our motivation? What were the problems that we encountered? What were the challenges? How did we overcome them? What were our actions and rituals? What has improved since then? So I'm going to provide a couple of examples of retrospectives themselves and actually what has improved over time. And also, how does it make our team in Nitro excellent? And some tips and tricks you can take back to your teams. So our motivation, that was about 18 months ago. We didn't have a good visibility into our team or what engineering team is doing. Other team members or leadership or management didn't exactly know what was going on. So there was not much visibility there. We didn't prioritize well because we didn't have a really good process. So that resulted in some trust issues amongst the team members and also amongst from a leadership team or other teams as well, because we didn't prioritize effectively. We couldn't estimate well. And then the culture is also very important. So what kind of culture did we want to have in our engineering team? What did we know about our engineering team? We realized that we didn't know much at all. We didn't know anything. So we wanted to build very open, blameless culture where people could ask questions without any blame. If we didn't know anything, we could ask for help. So that was our motivation to start looking at retrospective as something very, very important. So what were the problems that we identified? When I started at Nitro as a product manager, we had a lot of spreadsheets. Like everybody were having different spreadsheets on Google, on Excel, on their personal computers. A lot of people were tracking different things. Nobody knew what the team were actually focused, what we were working on. So, as I mentioned, the team did not have a clear focus. We were working on many different things at the same time. We didn't have regular retrospectives. That created larger problems, because if you have some feedback loop 3-4 months later, you're having large problems, and they're much more difficult to solve. We used to have release retrospectives, and for us, because our product is a desktop product, we cannot release every day. Our releases would happen every 3 to 4 months. Now it happens every 2 weeks. So release retrospectives every 3-4 months created larger problems once again. And then I'll go back to what do we know about our team. We didn't know anything. We didn't know how we work together. We didn't know how to make them the most efficient. So, as I mentioned, of course, we launched retrospectives as part of Scrum, as part of larger Agile framework. Then we launched it, just set up the meetings. So usually now we would have a retrospective at the end of every sprint, and our sprint lasts for 2 weeks. It's very important to be very disciplined. It's not good to skip a retrospective because there's too much work or because some engineer wants to finish something off. So you have to be very, very disciplined. Some of the challenges, some engineers didn't see the value in the retrospectives. They're like, no, not again. Why do I have to go to this meeting? There's no engineer that I have met that enjoy going to meetings. Attendance is mandatory. Everybody must attend. It's not an optional meeting, and everybody must participate. No blame. Once again, this goes back to the culture. Everybody are allowed to ask whatever questions they want. And also, we ask all the people in the meeting room to be very empathetic, because everybody has different experiences. So what I experience is, can be very different from all of you. So we went through a lot of experiments. So we actually retroed the retro, what works for us. So once we started with whiteboard sessions. There was like 2 kind of different ways how we used to do it, depending on whatever, we like choose it randomly. So at the beginning, we would get people to write on the whiteboards themselves. So the whiteboard would be divided, usual stuff, good, bad, things to improve. And then everybody would grab a marker and write on the whiteboard. Then a moderator would go through the whiteboard and then decide on the action items from that. Another one was to go around the room, but that not works for everyone because some team members are louder, some team members don't want to speak. So we didn't stick to that. We abandoned this idea because it didn't work for us. Experiment 2. So this is actually what we're doing right now. Everybody gets to the room. Of course, you have to prepare, bring a lot of Post-its and enough pens and pencils. Everybody writes on a Post-it note, good, bad, and to improve, of course, comes later. Then everybody are done. Usually takes about 5-10 minutes, depending. When everyone are done, we stick it onto a whiteboard or a wall or wherever, depending how your office is set up. And then once again, a moderator goes through this list, good, bad, and things to improve, and the team can decide themselves what do we want to work on. Experiment 3, action items. So once the action items were decided, what we used to do is we used to put them on Confluence and assign a person who is going to be responsible for this action item. This didn't work at all. You can see this is an example. It's actually a real-world example from our team. And this retrospective was done a while ago, and no action items are done. So it didn't work for us, and what we decided to do is, once we decide on the action item, we put it in the general backlog. So we would create tickets and put them in the backlog of Jira and prioritize them against other backlog items. Because this work is also work. It's the same as your general backlog and improving features and fixing bugs, and this work is also part of that. So now we don't do this on Confluence, we do it on Jira. Experiment 4 was, even though we do have really cool managers, we are not afraid to talk to them, we are not afraid to talk about our frustrations, etc. I have heard some feedback from some of the team members that they don't want management to be in the room because they didn't feel comfortable expressing their frustrations or talking about the process when the management is involved. So we got rid of management. We were banned from coming to our retro meetings. It worked for a while. We had maybe 3 or 4 retro meetings without managers, but then actually we realized that management bring more value. We can give really good feedback. And the team is kind of, we got much more and more comfortable with the management. So right now we're actually not afraid anymore, or not, we're not afraid to talk about their frustrations. So our management does attend our retro meetings. Okay, so this is an example of our retro meeting. So usual stuff, what went well. Some of the examples, car nailing down installer issue, digital signature progress, releasing early and often, etc., etc. So retrospectives can be a good way to celebrate achievements and celebrate small wins and make sure that the team is recognized and separate team members are recognized during the retro as well. Then what didn't go so well, so for example, changing backlog priorities, customer is not testing the issue enough, no merging allowed, no engineer will like this, no process for investigation tasks, not enough tests, so we don't know if a quality is the most excellent for our product. And then we decide on the action items. And what I realized that over the time, action items, there's less and less action items than it was at the beginning. At the beginning, we used to have 10, 15, even more, but now there's less and less and less because the team is improving, the process is improving, the team is becoming more efficient, people know how we work best. So we write action items, and then right now we would go into a Jira backlog. We wouldn't go on Confluence or anywhere else. So we have realized that we did quite a lot of improvement over time when we look back. One of them I would like to talk about is a process. As I mentioned before, we didn't have a really good process. We didn't have a really good prioritization process, and then that led to a lot of different problems. So transparency, we're very, very transparent. Even if we have a blocking issue or if we cannot fix something, everybody can go into our Jira board and check what is blocked, what we are working on, have a high-level overview. So we are very, very transparent with the whole company and our stakeholders, of course, like sales and customer success teams and customers themselves. Visibility, once again, everybody knows what we're working on, everybody can check, everybody can go into our Jira boards and see a high-level overview or go into a specific issue if they wish. Scrum boards, from spreadsheets, we went into a Kanban board, and then we changed into a Scrum board, so we changed them twice, and that's because we had this constant feedback loop. Kanban boards worked for us at the very beginning, but then realized that Scrum brings more value. So we changed this slide, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in the next slide. And also Scrum process. We are not done. We are never going to be done trying to improve our process, but right now it has improved dramatically since we started as a team. Okay, so these are the two Jira boards I was talking about. So we started with a lot of spreadsheets. We did have Jira, but it was very messy. Nobody could understand what was what, where to find things. So from spreadsheets, we went into Kanban. So Kanban is when you have a prioritized backlog, and then each engineer picks up the top issue and then brings into in progress. But that didn't work for us because of a type of a product. Because as I mentioned, our product is a desktop product, so we cannot have a continuous release. We cannot release every day. And then we changed to a Scrum backlog, and now it actually works really well. The team is happy. I think it gives a lot of visibility as well for many different people and many different teams as well. So yeah, because of this continuous feedback, we changed it twice already. Oh, I had animations I didn't know. Another improvement is on team health. I can see that the team became really happy. They enjoy working with each other. They know how to solve problems. Teamwork is really, really strong. People are not afraid to talk to each other. People are not afraid to ask each other questions, ask for help. And you can really see that they try to overcome some kind of problem together. And there's no one person isolated that would try and solve things. Trust. So trust increased because of a few different reasons. Because, of course, our process improved. That means there was more visibility and more transparency. And people can see what we are working on. So trust automatically goes up. Equality is another important thing when you're running retros or as part of a team culture in general. So by equality, I mean that in retrospectives, everybody are equal. Everybody have an equal voice. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO or a manager or an engineer or an intern. Everybody has an equal voice, and they can raise their concerns, and they're going to be listened to and then acted upon. Happiness, I think it's important to have happy teams. And how can you measure happiness? I think in our team or in our company specifically, people hang around with each other, people go for lunch together, people hang around in the office after work. So I think they're happy working there. They enjoy each other's company. Recognition, of course, everybody likes to be recognized. Lower attrition is a very, very important thing. How to keep your team, how to make sure they do not leave. And at the very beginning, there was some friction, and some people left because of processes, prioritization, a lot of different reasons. But because right now we have this continuous feedback loop and the team is becoming more and more effective, it results in lower attrition. So there wasn't a team member that left engineering team in the last while, probably a year or so, and the team is expanding. So these are all good results from the continuous feedback loop. And of course, as I mentioned, engineers hate meetings. Not only engineers, a lot of people hate meetings. So one of our challenge was there was a good few people in the team who were like, oh, not again, like it's Friday, I want to go home, I don't want to go to the meeting, or I want to go finish some bug fix, and so you have to, well, first of all, you have to have a buy-in from management and from leadership. You want to make sure that they're supportive of having retrospectives, that they see the value in it. And then for the engineering team, you kind of have to bring them along to this journey and have to try and show what the value of it is. And I think the most valuable thing for us was, over a period of time, you go back and look what kind of things improved because of the retrospectives. So then people can actually see the value of the retrospectives. So how to run a successful retro, step-by-step guide. So first of all, fixed recurring meetings. So as I mentioned, we have a retrospective at the end of every sprint, and the sprint for us is 2 weeks. And we would then reflect back what happened in these 2 weeks. So it's best when the meetings are at the same time and at the same day all the time. For us, it's on Friday at 2 p.m. So it's right after lunch when people are starting to wind down after a long week. And then they can start thinking what went well, what didn't go so well, etc., and reflect back. It is mandatory for everyone to attend. It is not optional. Everybody has to be there and everybody has to participate. Now, some people might just go into this meeting and sit there and open their laptop and whatever, fix their bugs and do their thing. So you can create some rules, like everybody has to write at least 2 things, 2 good and 2 bad things that happened in the last week. So you can kind of work around it depending on the team. Preparation, have to be prepared. Post-it notes, pens and pencils, have to talk to the team how you're gonna run this retrospective. Also have to make sure that everybody, make sure to tell the team that everybody are equal, everybody has an equal voice, and kind of show the value of why are we doing this retrospective. And a few different methods, as I went through before. So we tried whiteboard, didn't exactly work for us. Then we did post-it notes. That works for us really, really well. And then you go around the room and ask each person to talk about it. Tell how did it go. How did the last sprint go, etc. But not everybody likes it, because not everybody likes to talk, especially engineering teams. Time, have to be very, very careful on time. We generally spend half an hour. We don't want to take too much time. And then off topic is something very, very important. There hasn't been a retrospective that I attended that wouldn't go off topic. People try to solve problems. People try to talk about solutions. People start having discussions. So you have to be, probably a good idea at the very, very beginning of a retrospective, say, okay, anything off topic is an action item. If it needs to be talked about, then somebody has to talk about outside this meeting. So then it becomes an action item. And then action items, it's very, very important to follow through action items, because if you create action items and nobody does them, what's the point of having a retrospective and you're not doing any progress at all? So for us, as I mentioned, when we used to document this on Confluence pages, we didn't actually do them. So right now, we are trying a few different things, and one of them is to create action items as part of a general backlog. So, the secret to team excellence, and why is it a secret? So, ideas come from everyone, and it's really, really important to be open and listen to these ideas. As I mentioned, no matter if you're a CEO or if you're an intern, if you're an engineer or product manager, whoever. Ideas come from everyone, and there are no bad ideas. They're just ideas that sometimes you're not going to work on. It does have a big impact across the team because the teams are self-organized. The team as a whole gets to decide how they want to work. And I think that has a big impact on them. Ownership of a process, once again, because the teams are self-organized, so they own the process and they can change this process if they want to, if it doesn't work for them. Look back what has improved. So that comes back to value. It is really, really valuable to have retrospectives and then kind of look back what has improved or what has changed since the beginning of a retrospective. So, okay, we had an issue before, for example, lots of spreadsheets or Kanban, and then it didn't work for us, but we changed to Scrum, and now the team seems happier, and the process has improved, team health improved, a lot of things have improved. Teams perform better because they are self-organized. They find ways how to be the most effective, and that's why they perform better. And of course, the most important thing probably is to continually improve. Just like a software product is never finished, so the processes are never finished to improve as well. Once you nail down a process, you can always improve something. So it's really, really important to keep doing it over time and continually improve. And that's it.
Thanks, Egle. And now I saw that we start getting a lot of questions.
I think the best size for a retro team is like 4 to 8 people. It also depends on the team. So as I mentioned, right now our team is expanding. And the engineering team we have currently is about 12, 13 people, and it's becoming more and more challenging to run these retrospectives. So what we are planning to do is to divide that team or divide the retrospectives. And the way we are planning to do this is divide the retrospectives based per like feature. If there's a team that worked together on a specific feature, so we would have a retrospective with that team or this group of people. But generally, try keep it low. The more people is going to take too much time, is not going to be as organized. So yeah. That can be hard. So there are people who are active, like naturally active, and they want to talk and they want to give their opinions. And that's something that you have to look out for, because there's always one person who speaks the loudest and one person who proposes ideas and asks questions and says, oh yeah, we have to do it like this. So you can, as I mentioned before, you can create some rules, like, everybody has to write, say, 2 things that went well and 2 things that didn't go well. So just make it mandatory, make everybody write. We don't necessarily have to speak if you don't want to. Post-it notes, I find it a good way to encourage participation. So we do have a lot of action items that are not directly related to development. For example, like I had an action item to create a new process for investigation tasks. We do have a lot of investigation tasks coming up to us, but then we want to focus on like real backlog and real work because everybody has deadlines. So generally what I do is I would create an action item for me to do something about it. So it would be kind of part of backlog, but I'm the owner of this project, and I have to make sure that it succeeds in the end. So we do assign kind of product owners for these tasks if it's not something that can just be, write some code or do something very actionable. So just assign a product owner, and I think that generally works for us. No, I don't think you should limit the number of good, bad notes. But if you want to increase participation, then say write at least like 1 or 2 notes. But I don't think you should have a fixed number of good and bad notes, like everybody write 5, and then we'll have like whatever 30, 40 notes. I think so. Generally, we didn't have to do this. We didn't have to create these rules because usually most people participate or everybody participate. And then if those who don't participate or don't want to participate, we kind of try to encourage them and maybe talk to them separately and say, hey, maybe next retro, can you please come prepared and have something to say? So no, I don't think it's a good idea to have mandatory requests. But you need to watch out the size of a team, and if it becomes unmanageable, then kind of have to come up with different ways. So we don't have KPIs, or we cannot quantify. It's more like we are looking back. For example, what did we have a year ago? We didn't have a good process. Nobody knew what we were working on. We didn't prioritize well. We were working on many different things. So if you look back, you kind of realize how messy the process was, or how messy the focus was, and that there was no focus. So then you look now, and then of course you hear feedback from, say, leadership teams and management teams, like, oh yeah, I know what exactly you're working on. The team seems happy. You're providing good results, and of course you're becoming more and more efficient. So you can kind of measure that as well, that you have a deliverable every whatever amount of time, and this deliverable is faster because the team is more and more efficient. So there are different ways, but we do not measure it in like a quantifying way. I think everybody who works on a specific project has to attend. So in our case, it's engineers, QA, product managers, and generally like engineering manager, or someone kind of more from a leadership team. So it really depends. As I said, a retrospective is for the team who does the work. So if you don't want their management to be there, they can ban their management from these meetings if they feel more comfortable. So there is no general rule who is not allowed to participate. So it's what works for a specific team. As I mentioned, we kicked our management out from the retrospectives before, but then we realized that actually, no, we want them back because we do add a lot of value to these meetings. So there's no rule who can participate. We never had extremely small amount of post-its, so I don't know. Extremely small amount of post-its. I encourage people to participate, maybe ask some open-ended questions, try to engage with them. But yeah, no, we never had such a problem before. Good for us. I'm not sure I understand this question. So when we do retrospectives, the board is actually physical. So like if you have post-it notes, we attach them to a physical board. I don't know if somebody wants to expand on this question.
Can someone give more information about this question? Or is it?
Who asked this question?
Nah. No one.
Okay, then let's move on.
This depends on the company, and it depends on the team. So in our company, we are, our headquarters are in San Francisco, so we are a very cool, trendy Silicon Valley company with beer and wine and alcohol and things like that. So every Friday, we have a beer cart where a person, if you have a new hire, it's usually a new hire that goes around the office, introduces themselves and offers them a drink. So that's a chance to kind of meet them as well. If there is no new person, then anyone. People generally volunteer. They go around the office. So we celebrate not every sprint, we celebrate at the end of each week. Really hard to handle. I think the most, that's a tough question. I always have trouble like coming up with real examples because you go blank and all that. Really hard to handle. I feel like it's not, I wouldn't say it would be really hard to handle. I think when people go off topic and try to solve something there and then, that can be really hard to handle. If you have like, 3, 4 engineers kind of talking about each other, having this discussion going on and on and on, it's really hard to stop them and say like, hey guys, no, stop, continue this offline. I mean, we still keep talking and talking. So that can be challenging to handle. But goods, bads, and improvements, if they come up again and again and again, then we have to look at our action items and who is the owner. So that means we had a wrong action item or a wrong solution or wrong person assigned to it. So we need to look at that. Maybe we can change this action item. Maybe we're trying to solve the wrong problem, or maybe the person was not the right person to work on this problem. So you kind of have to, look back and try to improve even the action items, if it's something that comes up again and again and again. That means you didn't solve it right, or you didn't solve the right problem. Yes, generally, most of our retros bring a good feeling within the team because there's always something to celebrate. There's always some good achievements within the team. So people generally get out of a retro kind of feeling uplifted in a way. To bring real attention to problems in hand. Yeah, sometimes we would, if one person thinks it's a real issue for them, but then it doesn't touch anybody else. So it might be hard to convince everybody else that for this one person, it's actually a problem. So you do need to be empathetic and kind of feel their pain and try to resolve this issue for them. So I think that's up to a moderator maybe to ensure that everybody is listened to and everybody's frustrations are being talked about and being addressed. No, we don't do this. We generally don't collect any stats, or we don't do any KPIs. We just reflect back and see how the team is going. So, right now we can see that the team is efficient, we are progressing fast, we are shipping the product. So that's a good thing to have, and we don't have issues with that. So we don't really collect any stats. And then, are there any specific people or roles For the action item, if once again, I'm not sure of the question. If it's an action item, are there any specific people or roles? Generally, people volunteer to take an action item, or you can kind of say like, okay, you're gonna do this, and then they don't usually say no. How do you follow up action items? At a new retro, at the beginning of a retro, we always look back at the previous retro's action items. And then if they're not done, we'll usually, try to make people a little bit embarrassed if we didn't do them, etc. So we try to do them next time. But as I said, there's never blame in a retrospective or in the team in general. So we review them a previous retro at the beginning of a next retro. Phew. Oh, no. That depends on the team, again. So generally, I do a retros, and I'm a product manager, but I don't have any people reporting to me. So our organization is very flat. There's engineering teams, and then there's me, but we work together, even though, nobody reports to me. So generally, I run these, but say if I am out of the office, if I'm on vacation, I would ask someone in the team to run this for me. We are lucky that in the team we have some engineers or developers who are Scrum Masters, and we generally volunteer, so that's good. But I think it can be anyone. Of course, person with experience is better than person with no experience, but I think anybody can run this. If they saw a retro ran before, anybody can do it. So silent people, as I mentioned before, one of our methods of running the retros on a whiteboard, where everybody had to write something, or everybody go around the room and everybody had to speak, and some people don't feel comfortable in speaking. So I think Post-its solve this problem quite well, because when you write on a Post-it and then you stick it on a wall, you don't actually have to talk about it. So I think, I think Post-its, when people have to write and they're sure that they will not be asked questions, they're kind of more comfortable doing that.
Okay, and that's all questions, and we almost all of time. Please evaluate our speaker. And thanks, Egle, one more time. This is a small gift from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.